session is James Wilson from the Research IT Services Department at UCL, and he will talk about the UCL institutional infrastructure for fair data. Please,
yes,
James.
Yes, thank you very much, Marco. I know I was having a few problems with my microphone this morning, so if I start sounding like a robot at any point, it's not intentional. So please do chip in, and I will move a little bit closer to the microphone. I'm already kind of shouting at my laptop a little bit out here at the moment, but do mention it if it becomes inaudible. Am I okay for now?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly. Thanks.
Brilliant. Okay, so yes, so as Marco says, my name is James Wilson. I'm Head of Research Data Services at UCL, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we're doing within the university to support fair data, and also where we hope to go in the future and how we hope to be able to spread that kind of support a little bit more widely and get involved in projects a bit more than we have in the past. First issue, my slides aren't changing. Right, that's better. So UCL has been interested in open science, open data for quite a while, and has made it part of several of its university policies. We're also unusual in that it is actually mentioned the idea of publishing non-traditional research outputs in the kind of statement about career progression and so forth at UCL. So we have been a long-standing supporter of open science. It's mentioned in the university's policy. And that we want to be compliant with FAIR principles. I suspect everybody here knows what the FAIR principles are, but they are that data should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We follow the European definition that data should be as open as possible, as closed as necessary. Obviously, not all data can be made publicly accessible, but where it can be, we like to try and encourage that. And also, unusually for institutions, we actually recommend that data be made available with the Creative Commons CC0 waiver. So not one of the Creative Commons licenses, but actually a waiver so that it can be applied equally across all jurisdictions and to impose the absolute bare minimum of conditions on data reuse. One of the reasons we like CC0 is because it enables data to be reused programmatically in a lot more, in a lot less complicated way than if you have a CC BY or a different type of CC license. So we do actually encourage that as a university policy. A little bit about our larger aims and goals in life. So we're looking to develop an entire suite of services to support open science and good research data management across the research data lifecycle, and you can see one of many representations of a research data lifecycle there on the right-hand side. What we're really looking to do is try and join up all of those different aspects and all of the different kind of systems that we have within UCL and in the longer term without UCL as well, to try and encourage data and, importantly, the descriptive metadata that allows people to understand and reuse the data, to actually move from one stage to another, from one system to another. So we build up a really big, rich picture of the kind of metadata that underpins any given data output, just to enable that kind of reuse and also to support scientific reproducibility. So at present, my team in Research Data Services offers a research data storage service. That's essentially for live projects that are ongoing, and a research data repository, which is effectively a way to publish data sets at the end of a project when you want to make them available and fair to other people to use. We work very closely with our colleagues in the library, the research data management team in the library, and they offer data management planning advice, advice and guidance more generally. They also review all of the records that go into the data repository, so that's an important contribution that they make. In terms of who uses the service and why, you can see from that chart on the right-hand side, I think UCL's way of defining its faculties is perhaps a little individual, but you can hopefully clearly see that the medical sciences and brain sciences are by far the biggest users of our live research data storage system. That's basically because of the number of kind of high resolution scans and images that they take. It may look from that chart as though some of our faculties aren't represented at all. That's not true. They are all in there. It's just the sheer volume of data that medical sciences and brain sciences produce tends to dwarf the other disciplines in UCL. Basically, the RDSS is designed to support effective research data management during the active phase. So it does actually capture metadata about projects. So when people want to use it, you can use it for very large storage volumes. You basically go and set up a project, you name who can be involved in that project. You can set particular restrictions on which folders or files different people in a project can access. So we very much leave that to the individual research teams, because every research team, every research project is different. We also try to cater for unfunded projects as well. So we do give a small, well, actually a fairly generous free quota to projects who come along, so that we're not excluding anyone accidentally. The largest project we have at present in the system is about 230 terabytes, but there's no top end, there's no restriction on that. And the largest single file is currently greater than 3 terabytes, so we can deal with data of all shapes and sizes, really. The infrastructure, what it's based, it's essentially a GBFS-based service. I think that's how IBM Spectrum, but everybody I know still calls it GBFS. We have 2 separate data halls at a quite sophisticated data center out in Slough. So it's a mirrored system. Should one side of the mirror go down for whatever reason, it fails over automatically to the other. So we can maintain very good uptimes. We co-locate it with some of our high throughput computing facilities, which I mentioned a little bit more about in future. So we have very low latency between the 2 services. We have a nightly backup to tape. It's starting to struggle a little bit these days because we have such high volumes of data coming in and out on a daily basis now, but it's just about hanging on in there. Importantly now, storage can be mounted as a local drive. A lot of our researchers just want that ease of access that comes to being able to click on a folder icon on their desktops and simply access their data that way. So we now offer that. We do capture simple metadata to assist future data curation. And as I've kind of mentioned, we allow free project allowances up to 5 terabytes for up to 5 years, and charge a bit beyond that just to cover the actual cost of the storage media. We may have to reduce that to 1 terabyte because I'm coming under increasing pressure, unfortunately, to generate a bit more money, so we reduce the university subsidies, but it's quite generous, really, I think, at the moment. So this is the registration form for anyone who wants to set up a new project. It can be one or more members of UCL staff, include a principal investigator, but it can also include nominated administrators who can do a lot of the actual work behind the scenes. It's very much a self-service kind of system. Ideally, it's costed grants. Anyone who's listening who's actually at UCL should be aware that it's not the same as the group file store and the departmental file store, the individual file store, or anything else. This is a separate service which is entirely dedicated for research data. And the number one gripe that we get is, at present, it's not that straightforward to add members of projects who aren't UCL staff. It can be done, but it's an administrative process. You have to fill in a bit of paperwork to get someone added as an honorary member. So it's not ideal. It's a bit of a chore. However, we have been promised that we're changing the way we manage Active Directory, so that at some point, hopefully later this year, we will be able to directly add collaborators from other institutions around the world without needing to go through all the paperwork to do it. So that's something to look forward to. The research data repository, as I mentioned, is where you go to actually publish data sets or store them for a very long term. We're making some changes at the moment to make it a bit easier to release data sets, which are sensible parts of being publicly available, but we're still working on it at the moment. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with Figshare. It's one of the large commercial data repositories that exist in the world. We're actually using Figshare for institutions as our back end because they provide lots of very nice, easy to use interfaces for people. So even people who have never published data before, it's fairly intuitive what you need to do to actually publish data. The research data repository is not Figshare. They're not one and the same thing. Figshare are a provider of ours, but we are perfectly aware that in the future Figshare may cease to exist. And the repository is designed so that it can continue with all its data and metadata, even if our supplier ceases to be. So the repository is intended as a very long-term service for the university, and Figshare help out with that, but they're not exactly equal. When data is published, we publish it with a license. It defaults to CC0, but people can choose their own. So if you're under pressure from funders, or you're simply not comfortable with CC0, you can choose a different license. And as soon as something's added to the system, it gets a digital object identifier. This is important because it enables accurate citation, and it enables things like accounting. You can use it to derive impact statements and other things like that in a reliable and safely administered manner. It is free to use at the moment within reason. If you want to publish 100 terabytes of medical data, we might be asking for a little bit of a contribution towards it, but we're encouraged. And it launched at UCL in June last year, so we are still developing it, but it is a fully operational system. The enhancement project that we're currently undertaking, I've already mentioned that we're looking to improve the system to enable it to deal a bit better with sensitive data. At the moment, unless the data has been thoroughly anonymized, we can't publish it in the system. We hope in future to be able to provide some fairly good access control mechanisms, so data can be shared with a select group of people and not necessarily completely publicly. We're also looking at improving long-term preservation tools. Some of the data sets that we get in here, kind of longitudinal studies, may need to be preserved for years, decades, potentially even centuries. So we are looking at ways in which we can maintain the accessibility of data, even when things such as the formats they were in originally become obsolete and so forth. So doing those kind of migrations to really maintain a long-term access. We're looking at integrating between our systems. If you think back to that diagram at the beginning, one of the things we want to do is enrich data at every stage of the route. We want to get as much of that enriched metadata through into the repository so that researchers themselves keep manually adding metadata. We can pick these things up from the processes they've gone through. And we're also looking at improving linking between different research outputs. We want to make sure that it's really easy to associate data sets with more traditional publications, with software, that we can gather information about when the software was run, how it was run, which is the input data set, what is the output data set. We can really start to build an audit trail of the processes that data have been through, so as to understand that data and make it fairer in future. Traditionally, our team haven't worked that closely with particular projects beyond UCL. We've kind of been an infrastructure provider as much as everything else. We're now trying to change that, and we're starting to become much more hands-on in our involvement with projects and offer a lot more support and advice and other matters. Some of the things we're doing at the moment, we are actually offering effectively a sub-repository for groups that want one. So we have a team working in ultrasound metrology who actually want to set up their own repository. So we've done that as a sub-repository within the UCL one. So they have their own landing page and so forth, and they can actually administer some of the ways that the repository works. Different groups can come up with different metadata schemas, so they don't have to stick to the very basic one, but can add metadata themselves if they need to for their particular discipline. We're hopefully going to be doing some metadata mapping work between different schemas for some projects that are going through the bidding process at the moment. We're well set up, I think, to do that now. We're doing a bit more coordination and technical leadership projects, doing a bit more kind of database work with them. We don't have a full database service at UCL, but that's something we would like to be able to offer in the future. We're starting to get more involved in that. We've been starting to work with EUDAT and trying to federate some of our services with larger services at the European level. So you will find now all the results from the research data repository within EUDAT B2Find section. If you go to B2Find, you will find that there is of the 25 or so communities that are in there at the moment, one of those communities is UCL, and you can get all our repository results through that. And as I've mentioned, we're working on improving our Active Directory so that we can actually start to enable better access to our systems and our services for people who aren't actually UCL staff without having to go through all that paperwork. Future plans, bit of an overview slide. I'm sure these will be circulated so you can have a look at that. Best laid plans of mice and men do tend to change depending on the funding we get. But we're certainly hoping to expand a lot of the capabilities of our existing services. We're looking at doing a better database hosting service for people in future, including the maintenance of databases beyond the actual lifetime of a project. We're looking at how we can integrate electronic lab notebooks into this process as well. I'm not sure if that's something that Comp Biomed has any interest in whatsoever, but we'd be very happy to talk to people. And we're also looking at including our support and training and consultancy services to include hints and tips on anonymization in the future. We've not got very far with that yet, but that's certainly one of our ambitions, to help researchers get their sensitive data into formats where they can be shared that much more easily. I should mention while I'm here that we're only part of RITS. Our research computing team have high performance computing facilities and indeed high throughput computing facilities which can be used. We work very closely with the research software development team, who will do a lot of work on commission to help people develop good software code, reusable software code that's worthy of being published in its own right. We do have a data safe haven for people working with sensitive data, which cannot be anonymized. And we have a research applications team as well, who we work closely with. I don't know if anyone wants to hear anything more about the high performance computing team at UCL. We've already heard some presentations from about HPC, so that might be irrelevant to this one.
Sorry, James, 5 minutes left for you.
Okay, well, in which case, because I've only got a couple of slides left, I'll just briefly describe the situation at UCL for people who want to use the RITS high performance computing facilities. We have a new one called Kathleen, which is coming online very shortly, if it's not already online. We also have something called Myriad, which is very much intended for high throughput computing. I can't speak at length to these slides, but hopefully the slide speaks for itself as near as anything, and I can pass on any questions anyone might have. We also have a teaching cluster as well called Aristotle, which we use to try things out. And I know that our high performance computing team will offer plenty of advice and support for anyone who uses it. We also run national services, which may not be of use. We have a common software stack, which is broadly outlined there. As I say, I'm not going to go into that. And if you do have any questions, I might just have to pass them on to those who can answer better than I can. And that's a little bit more about the software stack that we have. I must admit, I can recognize some of the grumbles that we heard earlier about Python environments being problematic for various things. We do offer a wide range of different things that can be used. And that's essentially it from me. So if anyone has any questions, do fire away now, or write to our support line, or have a look at some of our online materials if you want to learn a little bit more. I hope that was all audible.
Yep. Thank you very much, James. Any questions for James?
Yes, I do have a question. This is Narges Zarabi from SURF. Sarah, maybe I missed it during your talk, but you mentioned about two main services. One, the R research data storage services, and the other, the data repository. So maybe I missed it, but is the research data storage services, what technology is it based? Because you said you will back up on tape. Is it based on IROTS, or how do you manage?
It's basically a slightly customized BPFS file system at the moment. We have our own in-house administration system that we put on for that. But it's pretty lightweight. It's essentially a managed kind of file system that projects can get their own file system and then use it kind of as they please within certain limits. And we capture some metadata about. So we can do things like restoring accidentally deleted data and things like that. It's a relatively light service that we offer. We used to use IRODS. At the moment, we are resting IRODS. We are thinking in the future of moving towards a tiered system of storage, as a lot of people are, in order to make the things a little bit more economic. And we may well use the kind of IRODS policy engines and so forth to move data in different tiers. At the moment, we're not